5 things to know about Evergrande crisis. Hong Kong. The world is still waiting to find out what will happen to the troubled Chinese conglomerate Evergrande and its enormous amount of debt. The property developer's debt crisis is a major test for Beijing. Some analysts fear it could even turn out into China's Lehman Brothers moment, sending shockwaves across the world's second biggest economy. Real estate and related industries account for much more than 30% of Chinese GDP. This week, investors experienced whiplash as the firm met one crucial debt deadline but then failed to address another. Shares shot up one day and down the next. In the coming days and weeks will be crucial. While Evergrande has a grace period up to 30 days on the interest payment of nearly $84 million that was due on the last week of Thursday, September 2021. It's supposed to make a payment on another bond next week. That's fueling speculation over what could happen next, with potential outcomes including a Beijing-backed bailout, restructuring, or default. Hence, what you need to know about Evergrande and how it got to where it is now. Let's look at it. What is Evergrande? Evergrande is one of the largest Chinese real estate developers. The company is part of a global 500 companies, meaning that it's one of the world's biggest businesses by revenue. It is listed in Hong Kong and based in the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen. It employs about 200,000 people. It also indirectly helps sustain more than 3.8 million jobs a year. The group was founded by Chinese billionaire Zhu Jiangyin, also known as Hou Kai-yan in Cantonese, who was once the country's richest man. Evergrande made its name in residential property. It boasts that it owns more than 1,300 projects in more than 280 cities across China, but its interest extended far beyond that. Outside housing, the group has invested in electric vehicles, sports, and theme parks. It even owns a food and beverages business, selling bottled water, groceries, dairy products, and other goods across China. In 2010, the company bought a soccer team, which is known as Zhongguo Evergrande. The team has since built what is believed to be the world's biggest soccer school at the cost of $183 million to Evergrande. Zhongguo Evergrande continues to reach for the new records. It's currently working on creating the world's biggest soccer stadium, assuming that construction is completed next year as expected. The $1.7 billion site is shaped as a giant lotus flower and will eventually be able to seat 100,000 spectators. Evergrande also caters to tourists through its theme park division, Evergrande Fairyland. Its claim to fame is a massive undertaking called Ocean Flower Island in Hainan, the tropical province in China commonly referred to as Chinese Hawaii. The project includes an artificial island with malls, museums, and amusement parks. According to the group's most recent annual report, it started taking customers on a trial basis earlier this year, with plans of a full opening at the end of 2021. How did Evergrande run into trouble? In recent years, Evergrande's debt ballooned as it borrowed to finance its various pursuits. The group has gained infamely for becoming China's most in-depth developers with more than $300 billion worth of liabilities. Over the last few weeks, it's warned investors of a cash flow issues, saying that it could default if it's unable to raise more quickly money. That warning was underscored this month when Evergrande disclosed in stock exchange filing that it was having trouble finding buyers for some of its assets. In some ways, the company's aggressive ambitions are what landed into hot waters, according to experts. The group strayed far from its core business, which is a part of how it got into this mess, said Matty Becking, China Director of Economics Intelligence Unit. Goldman Sachs analyst says that company structure has also made it difficult to ascertain a more precise picture of its recovery. In recent notes, they pointed to the complexity of Evergrande Group and the lack of sufficient information on the company's assets and liabilities. But the group's struggles are also emblematic of underlying risk in China. Quote, "The story of Evergrande is a story of a deep and structural challenges to China's economy related to debt," unquote, said Becking. the issue isn't entirely new. Last year, a slew of Chinese state-owned companies defaulted on their loans, raising fear about China's reliance on debt-fueled investment to support growth. 2018, billionaire Wang Jianlin was forced to downsize his conglomerate Evergrande as Beijing clamped down on firm borrowing heavily to push overseas. In a recent note, Mark Williams, Capital Economics chief Asia economist, said that Evergrande collapse would be the biggest test that China's financial system has faced in years. The root of Evergrande's trouble and those of other highly leveraged developers is that residential property demand in China is entering an era of sustained decline. Evergrande's ongoing collapse has forced attention on the impact wave of property developers' default would have on China's growth. How is Evergrande trying to move forward? Evergrande said of filing with Shenzhen Stock Exchange that issues regarding a payment in a domestic yuan bond have been, quote, settled through negotiations, unquote. The amount of interest it owed on the bond is about 232 million yuan, which is about $36 million, according to the data from Definitive. While the news may please investors, many questions still remain unanswered. Evergrande did not elaborate on the terms of the payment in its statements, and the interest worth of $83.5 million on a dollar denomination bond also fell due on the second week of September 2021. That decline came and went without an update from the company. On September 14, 2021, Evergrande announced that it had brought on financial advisor to help assess the situation. While those firms are tasked with exploring, quote, all feasible solutions, unquote, as quickly as possible, Evergrande has cautioned that nothing is guaranteed. So far, the conglomerate has struggled to stem the bleeding and has failed to find buyers for parts of its electric vehicle and property service businesses. As of that filing, it had made no material progress in its search of investors, and it's uncertain as to whether the group will be able to consummate any such sales. The company has also trying to sell off its office towers in Hong Kong, which is bought by $1.6 billion in 2015, but that has not been completed within the expected timeline, it said. How are investors reacting? Evergrande's problems spilled onto the streets this month when protests broke out of its headquarters in Shenzhen. Footage from Reuters showed scores of demonstrations at the site last week, requesting someone identified to be a company's representative, but shareholders have been varying for months. The stock has shed nearly around 85% of its value of 2021. Earlier this month, Fitch and Moody's Investor Service both downgraded Evergrande's credit rating, citing its liquidity issues. We view a default of some kind as probable, Fitch wrote in a recent note. The situation also appears to be spooking investors in China more broadly, at the time when they are already reeling from Beijing crackdown on private sector companies, particularly in the tech sector. Stocks in Hong Kong, New York, and other major markets have been swayed by fears of contagion from Evergrande and also slowdown in Chinese growth. In our opinion, how Evergrande credit stresses will be resolved will drive market sentiments, Goldman Sachs analysts wrote recently, referring to the credit market and the broader economy. They added that the Chinese bond market could be hit and loss of confidence could spill over the broader property sector. What could happen next? The Chinese government appears to starting to intervene. Over the past days, the People's Bank of China has injected some cash into financial system to help boost liquidity in short terms and settle nerves. According to Bloomberg, the net injection for the bank was 460 billion yuan, approximately $71 billion, sometime this week, including 70 billion yuan, approximately $10.8 billion on Friday, 24th September 2021. The authorities are clearly watching closely while attempting to project calm. Last week, Fu Lingwei, the spokesperson for China's National Bureau of Statistics, acknowledged the difficulties of some large real estate companies, according to the state media. Without naming Evergrande directly, Fu said that China's real estate market had remained stable this year, but the impact of the recent events on the development of the whole industry needs to be observed. Last week again, Bloomberg also cited anonymous sources as saying that regulators had enlisted international law firm King & Wood's Mallesons, among other advisors, to examine the conglomerate's finances. According to the report, officials in Evergrande's home province of Guangdong have already rejected a bailout request from its founder. Beijing has few good choices. It will want to protect that thousands of Chinese people who have bought unfinished apartments, as well as construction workers, suppliers and small investors. Authorities will also likely aim to limit the risk of other real estate firms going under, but at the same time, they have long been trying to rein in excessive borrowing by developers and won't want to dilute that message. Even with cash infusions, some suggest it may already be too late to save the company. Evergrande's financial problems have been widely dubbed by Chinese media a huge black hole, implying that no amount of money can resolve this issue. China has recently been trying to clean up its bad corporate debts for years, and although they made some progress before the pandemic, this task often seems interminable, and that's what you are certainly seeing here. The impact from the large default by Evergrande would be remarkable. With the current trend and changing world, businesses are striving to make its mark to live with. For now, we are witnessing a new change, perhaps to learn from. For the rest, we'll come to know beyond today. If you haven't subscribed yet, then you can like and subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. Beyond Today will continue to bring the latest videos from the different subjects and trends. Enjoy the video and have a good one.